We were told at one point to write about the ticket, something about a ticket. So this is called the ticket. That's the ticket. Hal Baker, her father, always said to express approval. Shelley wondered what that meant when she was a child. Was it a ticket to Disneyland, a ticket to a fancy dinner, or was it a ticket to a concert? One day she asked her father, and he told her that what he meant was, "You're on the right track. That's the way to do it." Long after she was grown, she would cheer herself on with self-talk. "That's the ticket, Shelley," she would say, and somehow it comforted her almost as much as if her father was saying it to her. Oh, how much she had loved her father when she was little. She could remember when she was 5 years old how in the afternoon she would wait for her father to return from his job at the factory. He got off at 3 o'clock, and she would sit looking out the window watching for him. The factory was close by, and she could watch for him to walk up her street swinging his old black lunchbox. Sometimes he would have a pie or other pastry in his lunchbox, and he would give it to her. She loved pie. Other times she would ask, "What's in your pocket?" "My pocket?" he would say, pretending to misunderstand. "Your pocket, right here," Shelley would exclaim and pull at the shirt pocket. Hal would look at her, and then, as if in surprise, pat and feel in his pocket. He would take a long time at this, and Shelley would reach up to check inside the pocket herself. Usually he had a lollipop or some other kind of candy treat in there and would say, "Well now, where did this come from?" He would always give the treat to Shelley, and she would sit there in his lap eating it. She loved those times. Once he realized that she was always sitting and looking out the window waiting for him. Her daddy started to slip around to the back of the house. He would come in the back door, tiptoe into the living room where she waited, and scoop her up suddenly from behind, kissing her cheeks. Shelley whooped in surprise and fear the first time he did this, but soon learned his strategy. However, she pretended not to know. Even when she saw him slip around the corner of the house to get to the back door, she pretended to expect him to come in the front door. She would sit quietly looking out the window, waiting. Sometimes she heard him walking stealthily behind her, but she would not look. She would even yell out as if surprised when he grabbed her out of the chair. That was the way to play the game. Daddy would be disappointed if she knew about his surprise. Later, when she became disillusioned with her father, she still remembered how she used to feel being his little girl. She had taken his love for granted then, and it hurt to believe that she had been mistaken. It hurt to feel that her father was not the all-powerful, laughing, wonderful man that she had thought him to be. Now she knew of his weakness and his feet of clay. Shelley's relationship with her mother was different. Her mother ran the house when she was little, that was clear. Her mother, who other people called Jan, treated Hal as if he was just another big kid. She was the responsible one. She cooked, cleaned, made sure the meals and everything was on time. She did the laundry and hung the clothes out to dry on the clothesline. She sent Shelley to wash her hands before meals and taught her to mind her manners at the table. She yelled at Hal when he taught his daughter bad manners, for example. Shelley respected and even feared her mother, but she was not as close to her as she was to Daddy during the early years. She was about 8 or 9 when she first started to notice things about her family. She noticed that she and her mother could both read and write, but that Dad could barely do either. This was amazing to her, and it took away a little of her pride in her father. Her mother, Jan, was a teetotaler, a Christian lady, and hated the demon alcohol. Hal liked to flirt with that same demon. Sometimes her father would come home having drunk something alcoholic, and there would be terrible fights between her parents. Her mother always seemed to win, but even so, her father would do it again and again. She suspected that her mother was right. Alcohol was a bad thing, and Daddy shouldn't be drinking it. However, she felt sorry for Daddy and hated the fighting. She wished that Daddy would not drink that stuff. She did not want him to be yelled at. As time went on, she noticed more and more. One day, she watched her father and a couple of other men as they passed a bottle of whiskey from man to man out behind the barn. She was ashamed that her father was hiding out there drinking so that her mother would not see him. She was ashamed of him both because he was doing something bad, drinking, and also because he was hiding it. That definitely made him a bad man, a weak man. She heard him tell one of the other men, That's a good old granddad. That's good old granddad. That's the ticket. Shelley thought it was surely a ticket to trouble. She was right and lay awake most of the night, sickened by the ferocity of the fighting between her mom and dad. Her mother was furious with Hal, who had come into the house staggering and disoriented after several hours with his friends out in the barn. In severe frustration, Janet yelled at him, "I hope you don't live until morning." Lying in her bed, Shelley cried and prayed that her mother had not cursed him. She was afraid that in the morning her father would be dead. She got almost no sleep that night, although the fighting stopped about 1 a.m. It did relieve her somewhat to find that her father was okay in the morning, although he was groaning and complaining of a headache. At least the wish, the curse, had not killed him. She felt so torn. She believed that Daddy was doing wrong, but she could not forget how much she loved him. She was ashamed of some of the things he did. She wanted to protect him. Other things happened. She noticed that Daddy didn't stay with his jobs for very long. Often they did not have food to eat. Daddy didn't get along with other men sometimes, and he would come home after a fight, sore and bruised with black eyes or cuts on his face. That scared her too. This was another thing that her parents thought about. She was afraid of the fighting. Someone might hurt Daddy. She hated the battles between her parents even more. Shelley wished she had a sister to talk to about this, but she was an only child. She couldn't talk to her mother and Daddy wouldn't listen to her worries. He would just make a joke and tickle her to distract her from what she was trying to say. This state of affairs lasted all through her childhood and teenage years. Shelley was 20 now and out on her own. Her parents were still together and lived 30 miles away in the house where Shelley had grown up. She contemplated these memories as she picked up the phone to call her Aunt Josie. Josie was Hal's sister, and she hardly ever called Shelley, but today she had left her a message asking Shelley to call her back. Shelley was concerned that something might be wrong. She dialed the number and waited for an answering machine to pick up first, then her aunt's voice came on. "Hello? Hi, Aunt Josie. You wanted me to call you?" "Yes, thanks for getting back to me so soon. I wanted to talk to you about your father." "Is he all right?" "He's okay for now, but he has a serious health problem. I didn't know if your mother would want to bother you with it, but I thought you needed to know." "What is it?" "I don't know if you were ever told about Hal's head injury from when he was a kid or not. He fell off a ladder and hit the back of his head. We never knew how much that was going to affect him. I think it was mostly a problem when it came to academic things such as reading and writing. Otherwise, he managed pretty well. Anyway, the doctors have found something that's pressing on his brain. They're going to operate on him to relieve the pressure." "Oh no, when?" "Next Tuesday." "What hospital?" "St. Michael's." "Well, you know I'll be there." "Poor Dad. I've always worried about him. I knew that accident changed him. He got along with everyone before the fall, and after that he had no patience, and he would get very frustrated when things didn't go right. Maybe this surgery has been needed for a long time," Josie said. "That puts things into a new light for me too," Shelley said. "It explains a lot of things that have happened. I always wondered why he couldn't read and write better, and why he was always getting into disagreements with other people. I expect that might have affected things on the job too." "Yeah, I'm sure it did. He's a good man, but people who have head injuries often have poor impulse control. They get frustrated easily and might have problems working with other people. I think he was always a good father to you, though, wasn't he?" Shelley thought about that a moment and realized that it was true. Yes, she agreed. He has been. Tuesday's surgery started on time, but 2 hours later they had not heard a thing. Shelley sat in the waiting room with her mother and her aunt, trying hard to relax, but unable to. Another hour went by, and still no word. Lost my place. Finally, after 3.5 hours, the doctor came out to talk to them. "He's doing fine," Dr. Branson said. "I expect him to be asleep for quite a while still, but I think we have fixed the problem." "When can we see him?" Shelley asked. "The next visiting hours are at 7. Why don't you come back at 7? He'll probably sleep until then anyway." "You're sure he's okay?" Shelley asked. "He'll be fine," the doctor assured her. The women ate in the hospital cafeteria and were able to go to see Hal during visiting hours. As the doctor that he was awake but not feeling so hot. Shelley was very sad as she looked at the sick and pain-ridden man before her. Where was the jolly man who had scooped her up to hug and kiss her all those years ago? She felt like crying as she looked at him. Although he seemed alert, she wondered what further problems he might have from the surgery. Although they had joked with him that he was looking great, he really didn't look so good. He had admitted to them that he had a terrible headache in spite of the medications. Her father looked at her and understood her fears. He smiled and told her, "I'm going to be fine now. They fixed my head and now it's going to work right for a change." Relieved, Shelley smiled back at him. "That's the ticket," she said.